But we do have a lot of great things going on. I can tell you that what I've seen have been very encouraged. The teachers out there really want to do what's right for our kids. And I think that's something we're seeing, and I think we do have some great opportunities. Looking at the days ahead. Just to give you a recap of what what we have been able to accomplish, a relatively short period of time. At this point in time, all school systems, they can make the choice to teach math. I think math was something we've looked at. But if you want to do math, what I would say the traditional math, what we grew up with, all school systems can do that, And so that is a choice there. And what I tell individuals is that, whatever algorithm, I guess the fancy word to use that, term, I said, do what's right for the kids. Okay, if it's what they need, then you teach them. Do all kids learn the same way? No, they don't. And so I think that's one thing that I've tried to say, that what we need to move is to a more personalized approach to education. And instead of trying to put all the kids in a box. And unfortunately, I think that's what we've made an attempt. And especially with No Child Left Behind going back, one of the things that I was very discouraged with, we said that every child's going to college. Every child has to take the same, this, that, and that's not right. And I think that because it cuts and it undercuts what we're trying to do is create opportunity for our kids. Another thing we looked at doing, and I think citizenship is very important. I think our kids need to know about our country. And we were able to raise money for all the fourth graders in the state of Georgia and give them a pocket constitution. Within that constitution, it had a Declaration of Independence, it has the pledge to the flag, and it has the Star Spangled Banner in its entirety. Not just what we sing, but all of the stanzas that Francis Scott Key wrote. And I know many of you here helped participate in that, so I thank you for that. And that's something we're looking forward, that I want to make sure that is an annual thing that we look at. Today, again, we're looking at what we're actually teaching our kids, our standards. Science and social studies is up for revision. Those are two sets of standards that we are working on right now. And one of the things I wanted to make sure is that they were Georgia standards. This is not something we followed, such as the narrative, what Common Core and some of the other things that are out there. Because what I do know is that our teachers are very good at what they do. And I think you're going to be very pleased with these sets of standards. I'm looking at the social studies standards. I've kind of had some input. I was a social studies teacher. And, I think we're going to be very pleased at what we are, going to provide for our kids. And one of the major changes that I'm seeing is that U.S. history, especially in the K-5 area, we're looking at probably it will be, instead of what used to be a 2-year course, it'll be now taught in grades 3, 4, and 5. So actually we have a little more time. We can slow down. And we can, give our kids a little more in-depth, time to look at what this at, and a little more foundational, I think, in an age appropriate, and especially allow our teachers to have that time to actually teach those courses. So that's one of the big things we'll see up there. I haven't looked too much at the science, but I think the science are going to, they're going to be good standards. I had one individual that I placed on there that I absolutely trusted, and at the end of the day said, Richard, you're going to like these standards. And so those were things that I think we were very, very strong with in doing. And, and so those are, just, trying to build relationships. Relationships is something very important. Coming into the office itself, there again, it was almost that the Department of Education was almost an island unto itself. But we have probably reached out to 80, probably at this time almost 100 different, groups and people that either one have said, Richard, we never saw the superintendent, or we never had, any contact with the Department of Education. And that's what I told people. I said, we can't have the Field of Dreams mentality, build it and they will come to you. So we've got to be missionary minded. We've got to go out. And that's something we're looking at doing. And I think trying to look at some, being out in the forefront and some of the things that are changing a little bit, the Move On When Ready, the dual enrollment, I think these offer a lot of great opportunities for our kids that now they can sit there and pursue. If they want to go to a 4-year university, then pursue that. If you want to go to a technical college, pursue that. And giving that, our kids that option, because that's one thing that we're trying to look at and try and probably will address within this year. What does the diploma look like in the state of Georgia? I don't think that all kids need to take the same for math, science, social studies, and English. But whatever pathway they go, if it's into a medical field, maybe anatomy might be a better science than what they're taking. Okay, If they're going into maybe an accounting field or something of that, or math, oriented, maybe an accounting class or a statistics class might be a better suit than saying a calculus or a trig, for that. I mean, because really, to be honest, for myself, calculus or trig would never have done me any good. I might still be in school if it was calculus and trig. But, it's just that, it's trying to line up and put just a little bit of common sense. I'm not talking a lot, but we can just get a little bit of common sense, and what we're offering our kids. And having, letting them do some things that will benefit them in the long run. And talking about some things that we're looking at, soft skills, teaching our kids, what does it mean to come to work, to be a good employee, to know what it's like to be an employer at some point in time. Business, we're listening to them, and that's one of the top things they have said. So we can teach the kids once they get here, the skills. But one of the things we have found out is that, showing up for work is something we'd like for them to know, okay? How to address, how to communicate, how to talk with people, how to be a team player. Those are things that we're looking at. And so we're trying to, listen across the state, and say, what do people really, really need? And that's something that I know business has been really harped on. And that's something we're looking at, and especially in our CTEA courses, to make sure that that's, something that we should be teaching in all those courses we have. So we'll see that as something that will continue to grow as we prepare our kids. Of course, I think that for myself, that would be a great course for all kids. They need to know how to work. Because I had an individual that he has a business, so I had a person from Georgia Tech come in and apply. But he was so horrible at just basic skills and communication, writing a resume and things like that, that he went with someone else. And I can guarantee you, people who go to Tech, up here they have everything. But sometimes it's just those little things that matter. And I think that's where I try to even stress to my staff. I said, you get the little right first so you can do the big. The big will come. And so I think those are things we looked at. And, some other things that we're trying to, to force. Reading is something that is a passion for me. K-5 education, probably if I wanted to say that at the end of the day, if I could say that if I had a dream of accomplishing something, it would be to make sure that every child was reading on grade level by the end of third grade, because that's going to open up the door. If our kids can read, right now we have about a 34% proficiency rate at reading. We're kids, they read, but we got to get them able to read, proficiently. Because reading, I don't care, I tell them, so if you think about every class you take, there's one common denominator. You've got to read. I think about every test you take, there's one common denominator. You've got to read. And I think that I would challenge you today. Could you imagine your life right now and what opportunity would mean if you could not read? Okay, just think about that. I remember my grandfather who could not read. And just simple things of just looking at a card. All he did was look at the pictures. But he didn't see the, perhaps I love you, granddaddy, or something there on there. Think about what they missed. And that's what reading is so important. And so I think that with the governor and with the lieutenant governor, both our Senate and House education committees, I actually think we're going to do something about reading in Georgia. And we have a great opportunity to do that. And finally, that's what I've said for years. And as a high school, teacher, I said, we played school a lot about this reading. But I think we're actually going to have school and do what's right for our kids, because that's the one thing that will open. But also to give the kids in that K-5 area a strong math background as well. Math and reading, I don't care what you say, those are the two skills that you really, really need. And I think the communication skill, whether it's cursive, being able to talk, learn how to, communicate with people, those are three things that will carry you on and move you, past wherever you want to go. And I know I don't want to take up too much more time, but if you have any questions, but that's something we're looking at. I think looking at our career technical ag engineering, that's something that I'm very pleased. We have a young lady, Dr. Wall there, and she has taken off with that. I think for what we're going to be able to offer our kids will be bar none the best that this state has, because a lot of states are looking at us. We actually, to show that the commitment there, we actually, I think, to my knowledge, and for the first time in our state, and again, perhaps first time in our nation as well, we have an economic development person at the Department of Education. Okay, in other words, we're telling that we're listening to business, we're going to work together and create. And I think that, to help, not to say we're going to dictate from up there, but we're working with our local school systems to say, this is what your needs are. Trying to tie in and show that, hey, this is what you can work. We hope that what we have is business partnerships that come and help create classes and support what's going on. Because I think we can get this, and again, what you have seen here today with just community involvement, you look at what community involvement can do. And that's something I think we want to continue to grow and foster, and we are doing, I think, a great job with that. We've just finished up, I think we had 13 regional meetings in which we brought, again, education, we brought business, we brought municipalities, all of us together to talk about what is best and what's right for our kids. And so that's going to make us a very vibrant thing. And again, as I shared, that to my knowledge is the first we have ever, I know that from a state perspective we've done that, but also I think the nation. I mean, other people look at it and say, wow, I mean, their eyes just get big with that. And I think the last thing we will look at before I close, and I'll take a few questions, I look at teaching the whole child. And there are things that, again, I realize there are things more than just math and science and social studies. I'm a big believer in the fine arts. I think art, I think music, band, dance, drama, visual arts, those are important things. And what we did is that we actually hired the first person in fine arts at the Department of Education who has been there in 23 years. So we have had a 23-year absence. And again, once again, I commend the governor that, with the task force, and I think we're going to get some more support in that area. Because those are things that just add. And when you talk about critical thinking, well, that's what allows you to put in practice all these things. And again, one of the figures that was mentioned to me, I think it's 40% of either the kids that graduate from Tech or either attend Tech, what they do is they have a band background. I don't know about you, but if I'm seeing band, but you think about what band and the math and the skills and everything it does, but also it brings a little bit of excitement. I was over at, I think, Lambert High School, and I mean, they showed me the fine arts program, and I was just blown away. I said, this is what education's all about. I mean, it's, the excitement and things that I mean, they are young people that they'll be traveling, I think, to Rome next year to play. But, in part of the classes, I had a string quartet, and it started from one young girl who met a teacher, or I guess it was an outside instructor, and said, I'd just like to form something, after school. Now they have 2 classes in school. And I met down in Macon County, principal down there. They actually have in kindergarten, 1st grade, you have kids learning violin. And that was pretty impressive. I mean, it's the real deal. Of course, it's a miniature version of the violin, but it's something more than just, the little flute things or recorders I think I've seen. And so I'm looking forward to going back this year and see how much they've grown. So, we have a lot of exciting things going on in education. We are trying to address the testing issue. We have a testing audit that's going on. I do think we probably test a little bit too much in Georgia. And I think that if we just spend a little more time with our kids, the testing will take care of itself if we get the education right. And so we are doing that, and for teachers, trying to get some relief there, because one of the things we look at teaching, our teaching corps, by year 5, we lose half our teachers that enter the profession. So that's a pretty high turnover. We've got to look at why we're doing that. We actually had a survey we came out in which we put out to our teachers, and we were asking about teacher recruitment and retention. And within about a week and a half, we had just about half the teachers in Georgia respond. So we'll be coming out with that information and sharing with that. But once again, it's a pleasure and an honor to be your state school superintendent. If I or the staff can be of any service, please let us know. And if we have time for a few questions, I'll take a few. If not, then definitely